วัสดีค่ะยินดีต้อนรับเข้าสู่รายการ Tech Castle Thailand รายการที่จะพาคุณท่องเข้าไปในโลกของเทคโนโลยีกับดิฉันแพรทะแก้วกล้าวแก้วมังคละโฮสต์ของรายการค่ะในเอพิโซด15ของเรานี้นะคะก่อนอื่นเลยแพรต้องขอบคุณสปอนเซอร์หลักของเรานะคะ แคทคาร Associates Asia Recruitment ที่เป็นผู้สนับสนุนหลักของเรามาจนถึง EP15 แคทคารเนี่ยเขาเป็นผู้เชี่ยวชาญทางด้านการสรรหาพนักงานทางด้านเทคโนโลยีแล้วก็ได้มีการร่วมงานกับบริษัทที่หลากหลายมากเลยไม่ว่าจะเป็นบริษัทขนาดเล็กสตาร์ทอัพจนถึง Enterprise Level ขนาดใหญ่เลยนะคะเพราะฉะนั้นถ้าท่านผู้ฟังท่านใดสนใจเนี่ยก็สามารถไปเช็คเอาท์ลิงก์ของทางแคทคารได้ในโชว์โน้ตด้านล่างเลยค่ะแล้วก็มาถึงเอพิโซดที่15นะคะวันนี้แพรตื่นเต้นแล้วก็ดีใจมากๆเลยที่จะได้พูดคุยกับคุณคริส Sutcliffe นะคะซึ่งคุณคริสเนี่ยเขาเป็น COO อยู่ที่บริษัท Bizone เนี่ยเป็นบริษัท IT Consulting Company ที่โฟกัสในจุดที่เป็น Business Intelligence Advanced Analytics แล้วก็ Data Warehouse ค่ะวันนี้เนี่ยแพรกับคุณคริสจะมาพูดคุยกันถึงเรื่อง Data เรื่อง Cloud สำหรับ Business เรื่องสายอาชีพการงานของฝั่ง Data ไม่ว่าจะเป็น Data Engineer Data Science นะคะแล้วก็การมองภาพในเชิงระบบของตลาดฝั่ง Data ด้วยนะคะเพราะฉะนั้นก็ยินดีต้อนรับเข้าสู่เอพิโซดที่15เลยค่ะ Hi คุณคริส
Hi.
Thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation. So happy to be part of this.I'm
very, very happy. And I'm sure the audience will be very happy as well. And especially, you have this wonderful insight within business intelligence, within the data and cloud area. So let's introduce Bizone because,
Yeah, I mean, so Bizone is a data and analytics consultancy. And we mainly focus on cloud solutions on the Microsoft Azure platform.And we've been in the industry for back in 2002 is when we started back in Sweden.
I see.
So it's actually a Swedish company. And then in 2016, our CEO and MD opened the office here in Bangkok. And originally it was just to kind of, support and maintain our Swedish customers' solutions.And then we saw the market was growing here, obviously, and then we decided, to start marketing towards more local customers here in Thailand and Southeast Asia as a whole. So we see a lot of potential here for companies to benefit from analytics. So I'm really excited for the future for Bizone here.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, we have a pretty big, decent size of, I think, data and cloud market in Thailand. I think, look at the prediction. I've read somewhere they say that Thailand's cloud computing market is expected to reach around like 700 million USD by 2020. So.
Yeah, I think if it wasn't for COVID, I think we'd have probably escalated that a lot quicker. But I think that, once...hopefully, fingers crossed, the COVID situation improves and I can, foresee an escalation in moving to the cloud at least, or just, more innovation in terms of using data and analytics in organizations. So, the next 5 years is going to be really interesting and exciting time, I think.
For sure. I can't wait to see what's going to happen next. And let's talk about...your because I know that you used to practice actually, right? Like in BI before, like really hands-on before.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And now that, you're at your current role as a COO, can you please share like your career journey and, why did you get yourself into the field of BI from the beginning, first of all?Yeah,
it depends on how far you really want to go back, but I think that
as you like.
Yeah, I think I've always been a bit of a nerd, ever since my parents bought their first computer long time ago.
Yes.
Before even the internet was kind of a thing. So it really kind of I really enjoyed working with computers and the IT industry.was really interesting to me. So, eventually after high school, I decided to do to take a business computing degree.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a mix between kind of data, software and web design kind of things.
I see.
And it was really like the data side of thing that really kind of clicked with me. I never really been a very good programmer, so to speak, but I think the data side of things really kind of clicked with me. So I really enjoyed that, problem solving, building, automating things for customers and things like that. So it was really then that I decided that data and analytics route was the route I wanted to go down. But saying that, I think that when I graduated university, like web development was really a big thing, and that was kind of like, I think it was around about 2000 that web development was becoming really popular. But by the time I graduated, it was kind of a saturated market. So it was kind of a difficult industry to get into, just because there was a lot of people doing the same thing, and I didn't have any experience, of course, straight from university. Yeah. So it was kind of difficult. And then I landed a job for a kind of a data marketing company, and that's kind of when, the whole thing began. Really, that's when my career really started. I've been enjoying it ever since. I mean, I spent like around 7 years working in the UK, and then I moved out to Asia and started working first for Agoda.com, based here in Bangkok, and then moved to work for Bizone, where I've been here in Thailand for I think close to 6 years now, and then Bizone for the last 4 years. So, but in total, I've had maybe around 15 years experience working with data and analytics. So,
wow,
enjoying every every minute of it, I think.
Wow. Okay. Very interesting. Like, so, from what you told me, I've got a lot of questions. So let's go back a bit. And I'm just wondering, right? Like for the listeners of, maybe some of them are juniors and some of them are just people who might be wondering of, maybe in the UK, how was it like? Is it something different than in Thailand? So, I'm just wondering, like, did you have anyone in your family that was working in tech, or like, did you see the TV show or anything that, inspired you to be that, or is it like purely, your nature that you really like IT field?
Yeah, I think that I don't really know. I think it's just I fell into a group of friends who were all kind of, the nerds, and rather than you always kind of fall into some kind of group, and I was with the kind of nerds, and we're all into computers, and it was kind of a sharing games and sharing software with each other, and kind of just sharing knowledge and stuff, which was really cool. We all used to help each other with things, and I thought that was it was really, really interesting to me. And to be honest, I can't really imagine doing anything else.
Okay. Wow. Like, okay, that's cool. Like, because, a lot of people will be changing the course of their career throughout the years, but you're very sure of what you wanted to do.
Well,
which is great.
Saying that, I did take a short career break for a couple of years to explore teaching.
Okay.
So I'd already been working in the industry for quite some time, and then I around about the age of when I was almost going to turn 30, and I decided maybe I want to try something different, and I took some time out from my career and did something different, and learned a lot of things and gained a few crossover skills. But I ultimately decided that it wasn't really for me, and that IT was kind of really what I wanted to do. So it was kind of an experience to kind of solidify what I wanted to do for the long term. And I actually would recommend anyone who's thinking about doing something different, just take the plunge and go for it. Because it doesn't matter how long you've been doing something. If you want to make a change, just do it. It could be a little bit of a risk, but you learn a lot. So definitely recommend it.
Yeah, especially in IT field these days, right? We do have a lot of resources, right? A lot of resources, much more than before. We have like free code camp. We have all these, free or almost free platforms that you can really learn, many things, many programming languages, and you can also showcase your stuff on, let's say, like GitHub, right?
Yeah, I think what I really love about the kind of, if I compare it back to when I was kind of studying at university and even in high school, there was just not the level of resources that is available now. We would have to go to buy a programming book, and there wasn't really the support you get on the internet like you have now. And I think that you can basically learn to do pretty much anything you want to do over the internet for very low cost, which is pretty amazing. So, if people are thinking about doing something different, they can just jump on it and start learning straight away, which I think is a great thing, really.
Yeah, for sure. And what would be you would like to advise, like for people who would like to get into BI or data field? What are the qualities that will make someone stand out in this field, whether it be like mentally, whether it be performance-wise?
Yeah, so I would say that, have really good problem-solving skills to begin with.
Yeah.
And someone who really enjoys to build something useful for people. Maybe, you'll need some kind of specialist knowledge of tools and certain languages.
Yes.
And one thing I would always, if you're going to begin with data, SQL and databases is obviously a good core foundational knowledge that you would have to start with.
Yes.
But also, you kind of need a generalist knowledge of a range of fields as well. But I think, focusing on data and SQL, being able to start with knowing how to analyze data and the concepts of data would be a good way to start. Being able to work well with a team is really important, obviously.
Yeah.
And just being curious and never stop learning, because the industry is ever changing. So you need to be adaptable.
Yeah.
So you need to kind of constantly be focusing on improving yourself and learning. But I'd say that's the two main things is, being a skilled problem solver and, getting a foundational knowledge of data and analysis, I think.
For sure. Okay. I agree. I used to work in open source web development recruitment myself. And I come across certain candidate like from Python route that they would like to get into data. And, even these days, people from marketing themselves, a lot of them will be required to have certain background within SQL just so that they can consult the clients properly. So yeah, I agree. I think it's very hands-on skills, and I think it's very high-paying skills as well in terms of both value of the experience and the money itself.
Yeah, and I think that if, for example, if someone has come from programming background and they want to get into working with data and analytics, then they probably have an advantage, especially Python, Java, or Scala backgrounds. I think that those kind of skills are now in the data engineering role, for example, is probably the most the most important ones. So
yeah.
Yeah,
that's interesting. So talking about data engineering. So I'm just wondering for the audience, like what are the different roles within BI/analytics? And I'm pretty sure there's still certain number of people that still sort of maybe a little bit confused of the difference between data engineer and data scientist.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think I'll tackle that on like a high level.
Yeah.
So I would say that there's three main roles, and I wouldn't really. And there's some that I won't cover now, but I say there's one is the data architect, second one is the data engineer, and then you have the data scientist. So the architect is really the one who creates like blueprints for analytical solutions. So if you think about it, when you're building a house, the architect is the one who designs the the framework, make sure everything's up to code and up to standard. And then the data engineer is really the one who develops, tests, and maintains like architectures and solutions based on those blueprints. much like, like I said again, constructing a house, the engineer is the one who actually builds them, whereas an architect is the one who designs it. Yeah. And then you have the data scientist, right, which is a little bit different because they're kind of more of the consumer of the data. So they're the ones who kind of analyze, curate the data, massage the data, and then apply machine learning or maybe statistical methods to identify patterns and trends in the data. And they kind of combine the programming skills with statistical and mathematical skills.
I see.
But I think sometimes the confusion is that there is a slight overlap in skills between a data scientist and a data engineer because, the data scientist does, in some cases, depending on the size of your organization and the BI maturity you have, that the data scientist might do a lot more of the kind of data engineering to access and gather the data together to do what they need to do.
I see.
But maybe in a larger organization, you have data engineers and data scientists that are completely separate, so the data scientist already has everything they need. They just need to kind of, work their magic on the data.
Yeah, for sure. If you're in a bigger organization, usually this is an interesting part that I usually go through and, that the candidates usually share with me as well, is that the dynamic between smaller organization and a larger organization where it has its own pros and cons, right? But the pros of working within a large organization, you might have tools and all that, which, working in a smaller firm is not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will lack in tools, but like in a bigger organization, the roles might be more, let's say, like separate.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, I think that, it's definitely going to be a different dynamic. I think that's actually something I was going to mention is that, one observation I've made here in Thailand is that, a lot of people do want to work for a large organization, a company that everyone has heard of.
Yes.
and although it's maybe, a good thing, but the problem is that, when you join a big organization, they've maybe already implemented something already, and you might join the team where you just end up maintaining things, and things might happen a bit slower than normal. So if you work with a smaller company, things might happen faster. They might be able to innovate a bit quicker, and also you might be. And there's also the difference between working with a small company and then working with a consultancy, because working with a consultancy, you're going to have the exposure to lots of different solutions, different projects, different industries. That's also another avenue, really, if people are starting to look at getting into data analytics early in their career. Like if you work for a consultancy, you're probably going to learn a lot more, a lot quicker than you would if you join a big organization or maybe a smaller, like, startup, for example. So
for sure, yeah, because you have like various problems to solve, right? Within different industries.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and also like every customer, although solutions are generally similar, requirements can be different. Budgets could be different. The technologies that they prefer could be different. So you're going to expose yourself to a lot of different tools, I think. Just learning to be adaptable and. So, yeah, speaking from experience, really, I worked for large companies before and then moving to work with a consultancy. I think I probably learned more in the last 4 years than I have in, all my previous years working for larger companies. Yeah. So, yeah, that's just based on my experience. So definitely really rewarding.
I totally agree. From my perspective, when I was working with a solution architect, for example, and solution architect is, we do have the first episode that, we interview solution architect, and we have another episode that we interview enterprise architect. But in case of the audience that just stumble across this episode in particular, solution architect is a role where you sort of have to know a bit of everything. You have to know software, you have to know DevOps, you have to know infrastructure, and, cloud as well, and on-premise as well, which we will probably gonna get into in the next question about on-premise and on-cloud and what they are, and I'm trying not to get into too many jargons. But my experience when I was working with solution architect that is really interesting is that when I interview them and when they work primarily with the big companies, like let's say all pretty much their lifetime, they will have. The good part is that they do have experience in large scale projects, but also like you said, they didn't get to sort of build the structure from scratch. While you have to, with the bigger company, you have to wait until they do some sort of like huge buyout from another big company and then restructuring the whole system. Then they might get a chance to do that with that team, right? But with smaller company, you're just so hands on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's not saying that when you join, like say you join a consultant in a small company, you're always going to be able to start a project from scratch. You might be joining something in between, but you got more chance, I think, of seeing the real end-to-end process, which I'd say like a lot of times when you work for a large organization, you're not really going to get that often. Maybe if they are going through, I mean, this is what's so exciting about Thailand right now. You have a lot more digital transformation projects going on. They're kicking off, either migrating to a more modern solution, or they're migrating to the cloud. These are things that people can start getting involved in now. But I'd say generally, you got a lower chance of digging into something very new or at the beginning of a project than you would working for a smaller company or a consultancy.
For sure. What would you say is let's go back to what we were mentioning before, right? With the on-prem or on-premise versus on-cloud. So if you could give like simple explanation, if that's possible,
I will try.
Of what they are, please. Yes, for some audience that is not as familiar with cloud. Yes.
Okay, I mean, so it really boils down to kind of levels of responsibility as well, and the physical location of your the physical hardware as well. So with an on-premise solution, you are responsible for provisioning all that hardware yourself, and the software as well in most cases, and managing it yourself, making it secure. If you need to upgrade anything, you have to order and provision those actual pieces of hardware to do that. And like I said, the level of responsibility is that you are responsible for configuring it correctly, maintaining the uptime, scaling the solution, which can take a lot of time. Whereas the cloud is more like the hardware is managed for you. So you don't really have to worry about that. You can, if you want to set up a new solution, you can do it in, minutes or hours compared to maybe days or weeks with an on-premise solution. And I think that's really what the benefit of the cloud is that it's, you can get up and running a lot quicker. It's a lot more scalable and flexible too. And one thing as well is the kind of, there could be some cost savings there as well. You can spend less in manpower to manage those systems if it's an on-premise compared to the cloud. So there's cost savings there, but also like it moves away from the old like license-based costs. You buy like an Oracle license, really expensive for a long time, but with the cloud, then you can just pay as you go, pay for what you use. So that's really another like really cool benefit. So let's say you want to play around with a new technology, you can spin up some new resource, experiment with it, and shut it down, and only pay what you need with it. So it's yeah. So I'd say that's the major difference. The management side of it, the management of the actual infrastructure is a lot different. There's a lot less responsibility needed on that side of things. So.
I see. How about security? Like, I mean, we have big brands, right, of cloud. So would they help out with that as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with it being managed. So to some degree, a lot of the security is managed for you. But obviously there's kind of a balance between what you provision and configure and the underlying kind of security of the infrastructure and services. So it's a bit of a balance between yourself and the cloud provider. Whereas in an on-premise solution, you would be 100% responsible for security. So if you or someone in your organization makes a mistake, which happens, human error is common.
Yes.
Then you're gonna have a problem. Maybe you have a data breach and you have a data, you can be hacked, right?
Yes.
And I'm not saying that that's not possible in the cloud, because it can be. People can make mistakes configuring things, open things up to the public that probably shouldn't be. But generally, it actually can, in some cases, be more secure. And large companies, huge companies, are using the cloud for their data solutions, and also government organizations too. So they have to be secure for companies and government organizations to be able to use it.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I think that's the part, right? When it comes to like government agencies, whether government agencies or anything related to government, and it's secure.
Yeah, I think that there is one difference though, because there could be that in some cases you are an organization, you don't really, you have a policy of not storing data outside of the country. Now that could be an issue. So let's say, for example, you work with a cloud provider that doesn't have a data center within your country.
Yes.
Then maybe that might be an issue for you. So, but if not, I think that the area of security shouldn't be as much of a concern.
Yeah.
Really.
Okay, so it's a part of it is policy as well, right?
Yeah, I think every different countries have different policies, and different organizations have policies. I think that it's just a matter of like trying to do what's best for your organization, really.
For sure, absolutely. And knowing that Bizone is primarily focused on Microsoft Azure, compared to GCP, which is Google Cloud Platform, and AWS. So why does Bizone choose Azure in particular?
Yeah, that's a very good question. We actually get asked this quite a lot.
Right.
And I'd say that, we believe that Azure is kind of like has the best all-round ecosystem for building cloud solutions and integrating with your existing business applications and infrastructure. Most organizations, they probably have, Microsoft products already. You have Office 365 in most businesses, and it's very easily integrated with Azure cloud resources. But the other thing is that as a company, we want to specialize in something. We want to build a kind of a center of excellence here. So we prefer to specialize in Microsoft Azure, with the fact that we believe in it as an ecosystem. We like the vision of where they're going. But yeah, I think we want to specialize in something which is good. But that's not saying that we don't use other cloud providers. I mean, if a customer would prefer to use one over the other, maybe they have some global agreement with all their offices around the world that they have to use, Google Cloud, for example, and they come to us and they want to build a solution, then we can build it on Google Cloud or AWS. It's really not an issue for us. We would recommend Microsoft if they don't already have a solution. But like I said, if they have a preference or they have some specific thing that they need to follow, then we can build solutions on others. But also, I think one thing too, I mentioned in one of our previous conversations, but one thing to get first, like kind of understanding of a technology provider that you want to use is the Gartner Magic Quadrant. So if you look at that, it kind of visualizes the competitive position of 4 different types of technology providers. So you've got leaders, visionaries, niche players and challengers, and they're kind of measured in terms of ability to execute and their completeness of vision. And if you look at where, and specifically for data analytics, Microsoft is always kind of positioned in the top right, which is a leader in the field with ability to execute and a high completeness of vision. So that's a good indication that Microsoft is a good cloud provider to go for. I mean, Gartner actually, they do Magic Quadrants for lots of different sectors. So they cover quite a lot of other things, but so we also we wouldn't choose to use a cloud provider that wasn't suitable for our customers. So it's all about what is the best fit for them.
For sure. I think that's very practical. So I also know that at Bizone you use certain tools, for example, like Azure Databricks, and Databricks is not necessarily a Microsoft native product, right? I'm wondering what is so special about Databricks and how can it help businesses?
Yeah, like you mentioned, Databricks it's kind of a first-party tool that's available on AWS and Azure, and most recently Google Cloud. And it's without getting too technical, it's kind of like a managed clustered computing platform in the cloud, and it provides like an integrated workspace for data engineers and analysts and data scientists. To collaborate with notebooks and dashboards and whatnot. And it's based on kind of a very a well-known open source project called Apache Spark. And it's probably the most actively developed open source project in big data, I'd say, and the most widely used, which allows you to do, a lot of large data transformations and analysis, and then immediately run things like machine learning algorithms on top of it. And it allows you also, so you can combine, analysis with SQL on your data, with and also streaming data and machine learning on top of that too. So, and it's also constantly evolving and adding new features. And it's been a tool that we've kind of had our eye on and been using for quite a long time now.
Right.
And we're kind of heavily investing time and money into building solutions and building frameworks on top of Databricks as a tool. So awesome. I hope that wasn't too technical.
I think it's good in terms of information, but for the audience who are not in the data field or haven't been exposed to data, if you look up Azure Databricks, is exactly what Chris just described, right? Like it covers a lot of area where data engineer and data scientists can integrate. It covers the SQL, SQL, right? And analytics. So can I say that it help increase in terms of productivity as well between?
Yeah, I would say so. Because it would increase productivity, and it's also, probably you can build solutions a lot faster. So, let's say if you compare it to if you wanted to build like a similar solution on premise, like I mentioned before, you have to provision all this, provision and configure all this hardware, software. It can take quite a long time if you haven't got anything already. Whereas with a managed service like Databricks, you could set up the resources in literally minutes, and have something that's usable. You can actually start, maybe ingesting data straight away. So it's kind of like can make implemented solutions a lot faster and make data a lot more accessible to your organizations quicker.
I see. So I would say that's one of the tools or technologies that the businesses should pay attention to more, right?
Yeah, I would say if they are if they don't already have a current solution and they're looking to move to the cloud and build an analytics solution, then Databricks is something you definitely need to would look into. and also maybe if you have something like an existing Hadoop infrastructure on premise, and then you maybe want to migrate that to the cloud, then maybe Databricks would be a good platform to migrate to.
I see.
And if you wanted to get started with machine learning, you already have a big data platform. You have a lot of historical data that you need to process and analyze. Then Databricks could be a good tool for you, and also to start with machine learning as well.
Right, it could come in handy.
Yeah.
Cool. And speaking of that, especially whether in Thailand or globally, right? How do you see the field of data and BI evolve?
I mean, BI has been something, I guess it's had different names, in the past. Maybe it used to be called like management information systems and then business intelligence. But it's something that companies have been doing for a long time. So it's not kind of a new thing. But companies are investing more data into it, and they're investing more money into data. And the tools are evolving too. So I mean, if you look at traditional BI as it is now, they have you have users that are looking at dashboards to find answers, to a question, like for example, what happened and why it happened. You're looking for trends. So that kind of can answer questions like, oh, did we do better or worse than before, or are we losing customers, for example? And moving forward, and what's kind of like more it's kind of more modern now, is that it's moving towards like what will happen and what can we do about it. So for example, you can identify customers that are likely to leave, what products you should recommend to your customers,
right?
And it's kind of moving towards more like automated decision support, which is going to be integrated into your existing systems. So I think that's just going to continue to evolve. I mean, if you think about maybe the newest kind of technology in the field is like augmented reality, for example.
Yeah. Yes.
And I can see that probably in the future, we're going to have augmented reality for business intelligence. You can maybe have, let's say, a retail store, and you have employees working on the shop floor, and you could identify a customer, immediately have like a something to tell you what that customer would like based on their past purchasing history, and then you could recommend them a product and increase your sales, increase your customer spending, maybe increase customer loyalty and things. So, I mean, there's lots of different applications I can see going forward, but it's really like automating the decision-making process that I think that's going to be the main thing. And I think everyone now is kind of like they're looking at machine learning to do this kind of predictive and prescriptive decision support system.
Yes.
Yeah, that's something that everyone wants to do, but they may not be quite there yet to be able to do it. So you have to build these analytic solutions to have all your data in a structured, well formatted way, and then you can start thinking about machine learning on top of that. Because it's the old kind of the old phrase garbage in, garbage out. If you have like data that's not so clean and of low poor quality, then if you run machine learning on top of that, it's not going to give you very good results. So that's where you have to start with a good solid BI solution foundation first. Being able to do the traditional kind of answer the foundational questions with your data, and then you can start moving to the more advanced stuff. But I think that's definitely like, let's say Thailand for specifically, I think that's definitely moving forward now. I can I see that larger organizations, they're using machine learning, and they're hiring data scientists. So it's happening now, and most companies are going to follow in the footsteps, because that's usually where it begins with the big companies who have the budgets to to fund it, and experiment, and then the more kind of medium-sized organizations follow.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, looking at Quora, there's some question about machine learning. Can they predict the future? This is so it's been using in stocks market, right, already. But that's really interesting point. So yeah, I agree. You should nail down some basic stuff first, and especially interesting thing like BI itself.
Yeah.
And what do you think is, for example, I don't know, like you've been in Thailand for quite some times, right? What's your view on like the trend of the data market in Thailand? Let's just say like compared to when you just got here and, until today.
Well, yeah, I mean, compared to when I first started at Bizone in the beginning, we can definitely see that there's definitely a lot more interest in the cloud, for example, which we already discussed, and there is still some reluctance to move to the cloud,
right?
And
why is that?
For the reasons that we chatted about, there are security concerns and internal policies that may have been made a decade ago that might not be quite so modern now.
Yes.
But yeah, I can definitely see the interest in the cloud is moving, is increasing a lot more now, and also machine learning as well, like we discussed, is definitely more in demand. I mean, we do get a lot of customers asking if we can help them, with machine learning, and I do. We have to explain to them, you have to start somewhere first and then build towards machine learning. But yeah, we're definitely seeing a lot more of it now. So that's really really good for us as a consultancy, but also I think it's going to definitely optimize businesses, and they're going to get more return on investments, and competition is going to get a lot better here. So
for sure. I mean, what are the industries that you can see that they have been utilizing this more, like whether it be moving on cloud or digital transformation? From my end, is a lot of banks in Thailand right now are doing that.
Right.
Yeah, what's your insight, please?
Well, I think I mean that's a good question. I mean, are we talking about Thailand specifically or just generally?
I would say Thailand first. Yeah, Thailand specifically.
Actually, yeah. So I can see that it's banks, really. Yeah, like you said. And I can also see that there's a lot of manufacturing industry here in Thailand.
Yes.
And that is an area where I can see that there's a lot more interest in data analysis and machine learning, for things like predictive maintenance and, maybe optimizations. Maybe where there's kind of like they have quite low margins, and they have to make sure they optimize all their processes, and that's where like leveraging the data and machine learning combined can really help them. So I think that's an area where it's definitely going to grow, and what I've seen more interest in recently. One area where I haven't seen it so much though is actually no. Come to think of it, I think retail as well is another area that I see
that's right. Yes,
becoming a lot more interest, because that again is where maybe there's not so much it's lower margins, so they have to be a lot more competitive, and to do that they have to optimize and really maximize the value of their data to kind of make better decisions and ultimately succeed.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I think number one is I think that's where I saw the most innovation in the beginning was like the banks, and also the larger communications companies, so the likes of AIS and True, for example.
Like telecoms.
Yeah, and I'd say that those are really good use cases for where they would use machine learning For customer retention, for example, making sure they don't lose customers and offer them promotions to make them stay and things like that. And so banks and telecom, I think, were the first ones I saw it.
I agree. Yep, for sure. And from there, it will create more like sort of ripple effects, right, within the ecosystem and other industries.
Yeah, and I think that also I can see that with the graduates that we see applying for jobs, there's a lot more. There's a lot more kind of degrees that are covering data and analytics and maybe data science, and the workforce is becoming a lot more skilled in that area, and a lot more modern in the way of thinking. So I think that really helps as well evolve this industry.
Yeah, which is great news, right? I mean, speaking of graduates, since I'm speaking to a native English speaker, and whoever is in IT industry, we know that technical people. I've seen the trend of quite a few years back compared to now. We've come quite a long way, I would say, in terms of the number of professionals that now can communicate quite well in English. What would be your advice on people who are, because of seeing so many talented professionals and individuals where they're like super good in terms of their experience and technical knowledge, but they just get stuck where some companies, especially like top international companies, or whether it be boutique consultancy, that they require English. And a lot of these companies, they have really interesting work culture, really interesting products, really interesting solutions. What would be your advice from your end? Because you're both hiring manager and you're both native English speaker. What would be your advice on getting that up and running pretty quickly for their career? Yeah.
You mean maybe improving English, or?
Yeah, improving English to be good enough. How good do they have to be working on a regular basis with international colleagues? And
I think it's definitely important to have a reasonable level of fluency. If you work in an international company, I think that's obviously going to be a must. And to get better, if you're not quite there yet, I think, it's maybe a little bit hypocritical of me because, my Thai isn't very good. So
I don't blame you.
And I haven't really followed, I haven't followed my own advice, but I would say that, immerse yourself as much as possible in English. Right. I would, watching movies, self-study, practice a lot of speaking and listening. Don't worry about grammar. Grammar is something that you'll learn as you go, but just as long as you can communicate what you want to say, it doesn't have to be perfect, but just as long as you can communicate, what you want, then that is what you want to aim for. And then it will evolve over time when you're working. If you manage to get a job with an international organization, you're probably going to be exposed to lots of different native English speakers with different accents, and you're gonna improve your English skills. So it's something that I think that we do when we hire people. We interview them. Of course, like myself and my MD were gonna hold the interview in English, so it's gonna be an important part of the process. And unfortunately, we have to judge them on that. And it might be a bit of a shame because we might have to turn down someone who is actually really technically good, but might not be able to communicate well in English, which is a bit of a shame. But I think that it's important for us. But yeah, to improve, definitely immerse yourself. Don't be afraid to make mistakes as well. I think that's something that that is quite important for learning any language. Is that don't be embarrassed about making a mistake. You you'll learn from it, and you'll just get better. So but like I said, I don't necessarily take my own advice when it comes to language learning, but
well, Thai is very hard. Like, I mean, at one point I used to ask myself, like, what if you're not like born Thai? Will you learn Thai? And my answer would be like, yeah, maybe I probably would learn conversational if I have to use this language, but it's actually very hard. Like, I do realize we have like different sounds, like these 5 sounds, like cow, for example. So that's really confusing, right?
Yes, it is. But I mean, it's also, I think it's obviously completely different, grammar structure and, different script. So that kind of makes it difficult. But I mean, there's foreigners who learn it very well and they put the time into, to learn it and immerse themselves, like I said. And I think the thing with me is that I immediately started working with an international company. I'm working with a Swedish company now, and all my customers are Swedish who speak English. So it's kind of like, for me, I haven't really been day to day exposed to it as much as maybe someone who maybe goes and lives in a village outside of Bangkok somewhere, who would pick it up in 6 months. So
for sure.
So something I'm working on though. Anyway.
I'm sure. Like, at least you can order pad Thai maybe in Thai.
Yeah, that's Khao Man Gai is probably my favorite.
Oh, good to know. It's nice, really nice.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's very wonderful tips, coming from yourself. I mean, it's great. I mean, I usually try to encourage the candidates themselves because, I can see the total market, like the overview of the market. And I would encourage the candidates, especially everyone actually, and especially the one that I can see like, oh man, like, you can really land in really good companies, considering your attitude, considering your technical skills. And I would give these advice, but it's really nice coming from yourself as a native speaker, as a hiring manager, first of all, and you're within the tech industry. So that's like first-hand experience. So thank you for that tips.
Yeah. No worries. I mean, going back to that was, I think that ultimately you just got to be willing to challenge yourself, I think.
Absolutely.
And I can imagine. I mean, I'm trying to when I try to put myself in the candidate's shoes when they come and they're not a native English speaker. They're probably already nervous on the first interview anyway, especially if you're a graduate. Maybe it's your first interview, and if your first interview is not in your native language, then I can imagine how nervous that you probably would be. But it is a challenge, and you'll learn from it. Just
gotta do the route.
Just you gotta go through it, unfortunately. So you definitely come out the other side a lot better.
Cool. So apart from both of us and the rest of recruitment industry and hiring managers that are cheering the candidates on in terms of their English skills in some of them. What would be other areas that you wish we had more in Thailand, whether it be within the business data ecosystem, that could give us more of an edge than what we have now?
I think that's a tough. It's a tough question.
It's a tough question.
I think. Well, yeah. I mean, I think that. Let's think about this. I mean, I would say that be willing to invest more into building a data culture in your organization. Trying to move away from the more traditional ways of analyzing data and look forward into more modern ways of developing solutions. And it doesn't have to necessarily be on the cloud. I mean, we do push the cloud quite a lot, but I think it's really building a data culture within your organization and not treating it like an IT solution. It's definitely a separate a separation into definitely a different area of business. So hire the right people, get a good get a good team together, educate your business users as well, to use data a lot more efficiently, and maybe try and automate as much things as possible, and find some pain points, and try and find solutions for those pain points using data and automation of processes, and that will definitely improve how businesses work here. And I think, like going back to the investment, I think that's something that probably needs to be focused on a lot. Is
right.
Be willing to invest more than you expect into building a data culture and building data solutions in your own organization. Allocate those budgets, because it's going to give you a return on investment in the long term.
Right.
And like when you're working with say it's a big organization, that could be very difficult. Maybe you have a very hierarchical structure in your organization. It takes a long time for decisions to be made.
Yes.
But unfortunately, that's just how it works. But be willing to be more flexible and agile when you're building solutions too. So not the old school way of, you build you spend a year building a solution and then you deploy it, and then you realize that the requirements have changed by the time you've finished. That's one big area that what I'd say is to focus on. Try and be a bit more agile, adapt to change a lot quicker if you can. And that goes, with that, being able to be flexible is where the cloud really helps as well, is that you can experiment with new things. You can expand and scale your solutions a lot quicker. So if you're already adaptable to change within your organization, you can combine that with a good cloud solution, and you can ultimately, start developing a really good data solution and data ecosystem within your organization.
Yeah, I totally agree. So just to a quick recap, so building the data culture within the organization, and that's basically separate than just IT department or like software department, right? Like you maybe should have the data data department within the organization where you sort of dedicate that separately, basically.
Yeah, and having people within that team that are able to translate all the business requirements and business pain points into kind of the solutions the data engineers and the data scientists are going to be able to build for them. That's something that's important to do. So it's got to be like really ingrained into the organization, really integrated into it, rather than kind of a separate, data team that doesn't really, have much interaction with the rest of the organization. They have to be like ingrained into the team, into the organization.
For sure. I can't agree more. As recruitment consultant, we're also a form of consultancy, right? But within tech recruitment industry, and the ability to know your customers' pain point is everything in every single industry.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And if I have a marketer sitting next to us right now, this conversation is going to go on for another 2 hours, probably, just on this topic alone. So I can't agree more. The ROI, the return on investment, when you invest in data is huge, because it's like, if you compare to a gun, right? Like it's probably a rifle, right? Like it's so accurate because you see how it is, you see what works, you see what doesn't, and then you can, design to sort of strategize your game plan, right, accordingly.
Yeah, and the thing is, one thing as well is that organizations really have to keep in mind is that this is not something that you implement and then you're done. It is going to be a constant evolving organism, basically, within your organization, that you're constantly going to be improving. You once you start implementing a data culture within your organization, you're going to have more and more requirements coming through from businesses, from the business users. They're going to see more and more places where they can take advantage of data, and it's just going to keep growing and growing. So, that's something to keep in mind. You're going to have to constantly make sure you have budgets to keep that baby growing.
I see. Yeah. Who do you think is the best role to speak to the management, like the top management about this, like to sort of sell them idea, and actually you probably don't even have to sell, but to like explain for them to understand the real usability of data and how important it is to allocate the budget accordingly.
From what I can see is when we talk to decision makers and organizations that I think that is especially with big companies, that is one of the biggest difficulties is that they do have to sell it to their, upper management, basically, and maybe the C-level executives. I mean, they probably do see the advantages of building data solutions, but maybe they don't realize what kind of return they're going to get. They don't realize how much they have to invest and how long it's going to take. So it's a difficult question to ask. A difficult question to answer. Who would be the best person to do that? But maybe someone who can easily communicate technical solutions into kind of an easily understanding business concepts, perhaps.
Right.
And I think that's what we try to do as a consultancy when we're kind of selling solutions.
Yes.
Is that we try and understand their current pain points, provide some kind of context for them, something that's a lot more easily understood, and then to demonstrate what kind of value they're going to bring from it. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but
it does.
But yeah, it's definitely. I think that's definitely one of the most difficult things that maybe IT managers or management level who they can see that they need to start implementing something, but they're held back by their the more upper management.
Yeah.
That they really need to kind of demonstrate some kind of what kind of value that they're going to get from it. So
for sure.
It's difficult.
Yeah, and they usually love to see the numbers, right? Like what is
that? Yeah. I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's they just maybe want to see what is the bottom line. When am I going to see a return on investment here? And it's very difficult to measure. I mean, maybe you have consultancies like McKinsey and Accenture. They can provide numbers to their C-level execs to say, okay, in 3 years' time, this is what your ROI is going to be. But it's very difficult to measure, and maybe there's. In some cases, you have to take a leap of faith, and I think that's where you have to, you just start building that data culture within your organization, and educating everyone within the business, not just the technical users, but the business users, and eventually you're going to have a successful BI solution and data culture.
For sure, and maybe by showing them the sort of the industries, which is the same industry or within the ecosystem, right? And those numbers and what are those companies benefiting from this, and where do they stand now?
Exactly.
In that game, right?
It's kind of communicating what were their pain points, what was the solution, and then what was the impact that brought. And if it's something that they can relate to, then they're more willing to take that leap of faith. So. So
cool.
And looking internationally as well, if you have like a company that is in the same industry as you, look at other companies in different countries and see what they've been doing.
Absolutely. It's always better to be 3, 5, 10 steps ahead of the game. Like I really want to keep talking to you for another 2 hours.
I could happily do that.
Would love to. Maybe we'll invite you back for another episode if you're free to do so.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to if people enjoyed this conversation and I can give some value to people, then yeah, I'm kind of very happy to do that. I mean, I think that one thing I didn't mention, I think we were talked about before.
Yes.
What qualities it makes a good kind of person who works in data, and I think that maybe it goes for all roles, but it's being able to share knowledge, and that's something that we're big for in our company. And what I would, if I was looking for a job, I'd be wanting to work somewhere where people are open to sharing knowledge and helping each other, and that's what we try to do as a company, is try and get more knowledge out there. We want to see people succeed. We want to see organizations succeed, and in turn, obviously, we benefit from that too. But and sharing knowledge is how we can help do that. So if I can bring some more, if I can help bring some more knowledge out there, then I can happy to do that.
I'm glad. I'm very happy to hear that. Oh, yeah. So basically, thank you very much for coming on today on this episode. This is episode number 15. And this is, I think, our second or third episode done in English. And very happy to go through, all these areas with you, whether it be for the fresh grad or junior audience, whether it be from someone who is currently a web developer who are interested in, getting into the data field, whether it be from the B2B side, if there are any hiring managers, or business owners that listening to this podcast right now, I'm pretty sure there are, these tips and ideas that you can suddenly straight away implement to your business, or at least, research further. So thank you, Chris, for coming on today, and speak next time.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Speak soon. Bye-bye.
Speak soon.